I understand you don't prefer to be addressed as Monsignor Borski. You said you want to be addressed Father Borski.
That's correct. I'll answer to either, but I'm more familiar with Father Borski when I was in the parish. So
Okay. So
seems to be a little bit more informal. People know me, that kind of thing. To say Monsignor Borski is kind of like put me off a little bit on a pedestal or whatever. So, but I'll answer to either.
And you've been addressed as Father Borski for decades.
Like 53 years.
Wow, 53 years.
Yes.
And that was 1967 that you were ordained a priest.
That's correct.
And how long were you in the seminary before that?
Well, I spent 4 years in college seminary here in Houston at St. Mary's. And then I spent 4 years in what we call our graduate theology seminary in Rome, which is called the North American College. So I spent 8 years altogether in seminary formation.
So that's over 60 years in religious life.
That's correct. Yeah.
That is amazing. I just have to, that just blows me away. Over 60 years. So I understand you grew up here in Texas?
Grew up in the little town of Anderson, between Anderson and Navasota. Actually, I was born at home and delivered by a midwife back in 1941. So that's just what was happening in the rural areas of Texas. So I was born between Navasota and Anderson. Our parish was St. Stanislaus in Anderson. And so actually I was baptized 2 days after I was born. So that was just what our parents were taught, that as soon as you can take the child in for baptism, that's what they did. So I was baptized actually on February the 28th. I was born on February 26th.
Wow. And that was just the way it was done. You were born at home and you were baptized a couple of days later.
Yeah, right at the parish church, right.
Wow. And then the town that you were born in and grew up in, that's kind of near College Station, isn't it?
It's only about 12, 13, 14 miles from College Station.
Are you an Aggie fan?
I was, yes, I'm an Aggie fan, but actually I intended to go there for my college, but I didn't end up there. I ended up in the seminary instead. So,
but you grew up during the whole Bear Bryant era.
Close by.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. So you watched all of that unfold and you were there during those years.
Knew about them, Jack Pardee, John David Crow, the Junction Boys, and when they went to Junction for their preparation before their season that year. I forget what year it was, but was familiar with them.
Wow. Are you a lifelong football fan?
I like sports. I like football, basketball, almost any sport. I played football and basketball in high school, plus I ran track. But I'm interested in sports, still am today. So,
what position did you play in football?
Football, I played both offensive end and defensive end. Today we would say tight end and a defensive end. Yeah.
And in basketball, how tall are you?
I'm 6'4.5". Played center for our little school. Hempstead is where I ended up in high school, but it was a B school in those days, very small. But I played center. There was another guy a year behind me that we switched off sometimes. He played forward. I would play center or vice versa.
Nice. So I understand you're from a large family.
Yeah. There were 9 of us children altogether, 7 boys and 2 girls, and I'm number 6 out of that group. So,
right there in the middle.
Right in the middle.
Did any of them enter religious life?
My younger brother, who would have been the 8th one in the family, James, he thought about it for a while, but he ended up going to Sam Houston State and got a degree in accounting. So he didn't end up in the seminary, but he did consider it for a while.
Okay. And so you're the only one.
I'm the only one in my immediate family. I had a first cousin, Veronica Borski. She was a Dominican sister, and very interesting story. She worked in World War II in California. She was kind of like Rosie the Riveter. I mean, women worked in factories preparing for the,
Yes.
supplies for the war. And that's what she was doing. And she met some of the Dominican sisters who worked in a parish, and she got interested in religious life. And she joined the Dominican sisters here in the Houston area. And she just died about 4 or 5 years ago. She lived to be 92. So she spent a long time in religious life.
Okay. So did you two grow up together?
She was a little older. I
Mhm.
knew her. I knew her more after she was a sister rather than before she entered. So,
Did you always know that you'd become a priest?
oh no, I had some glimpses of that. Of all things, when I was making my first communion in Navasota, the parish was St. Patrick's in Navasota, and we had a visiting priest. I don't remember the details, but our regular pastor was not feeling well, or he's sickly, and so they had to have a Brazilian priest from Houston. They teach at University of St. Thomas as well as St. Thomas High School.
Uh-huh.
One of the Brazilian priests came to take his place, and he had the mass for our first communion. The night or the day before, we had to practice, and he was speaking to each of us individually, and I kind of blurted out when he asked what did I want to do or become when I was older, and
Mhm.
I said, well, might want to be a priest, but I didn't go back to that until later on in say middle school, a little bit. In high school, I had other plans, was interested in dating and going steady and all those kinds of things that high schoolers do, and
Uh-huh.
was considering, where I would end up after high school. So it was really a time kind of after I got out of high school that I stopped to consider that call again. It was there off and on, but not that serious at different times.
So only after high school.
Right.
So you did date around a little bit, have some relationships. Anything serious?
Well, I mean, for for a high schooler or a teenager, it was serious. What's interesting is one of the girls that I dated when I was a senior.
Mhm.
Um, she ended up getting married the day I was ordained to the
Wow.
diaconate. So, but I was in Rome being ordained and really didn't know she was getting married at that time until much later. There was kind of a coincidence, but yeah, not anything serious in terms of thinking about marriage, but certainly
Mhm.
serious about having a steady relationship. Yeah.
Okay. So you said that you were in Rome. How did you go from graduating high school to studying in Rome? What were the steps there?
Okay. Part of it was principal part was we had a new bishop come into Galveston, Houston.
Okay.
Bishop Wendell Nold was our bishop at the time when I first entered St. Mary's Seminary. I entered in 1960. And so about 1963, Bishop Nold was blind. And so Rome sent another bishop whose name was John Markowski to be what we call the coadjutor bishop. He did all the work in the diocese. He didn't have final say. Bishop Nold had that. But Bishop Markowski ran the diocese. And Bishop Markowski had gone to Rome for his own seminary education.
Okay.
And he announced when he arrived that he wanted to send a student from our seminary to Rome. And that's kind of the practice of some bishops in some dioceses. So I happened to be the first one that came up after Bishop Markowski arrived. And so I was sent to Rome in 1964 to study. So it was the selection of the bishop, um,
Mhm.
and then like I say, he sent me over to Rome. All of the ones that were going to study in Rome from the United States gathered in New York. It was the time of the World's Fair, so I got to see the World's
Oh, that's
Fair
nice.
in New York, and then we got on the boat, the USS Constitution, and we sailed over to Italy. We landed in Naples. It was an 11-day trip, and we got to know each other, the seminarians going to study. And so we got to know each other on the trip over. And then when we arrived in Rome, we began our studies there from 1964 until I was ordained later in the year. Ordained in December 67, but we have to finish up our graduate work, which ended up in the summer of 68.
Okay. You took a boat. Why did you take a boat instead of fly?
That was the practice in those days because they wanted us as seminarians to get to know each other. We had to live in the same area.
Mm-hmm.
We had cabins, 4 to a cabin. And so we were coming from all different seminaries, different dioceses in Texas, and most of us did not know each other unless we went to the same seminary. I only knew one other student when I headed out, and I got to know most of the other guys. There were 72 of us going over to study in Rome in September of 64.
Wow, 72 on one boat.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. So they wanted you all to get to know each other. So for those 11 days, you were just mingling, getting to know each other, and all of that while you were on your way to Italy.
That's correct. And the boat itself, there were probably 2,000 passengers on it. So we were down in the cabin class, not in the first class. So what was interesting going over, that was the days of what we call the hootenanny days. They would be sing-alongs. And so here we were, 72 young men going to study for the priesthood. And there were probably about 50 students going over to study either art or language in Florence, Italy, or Perugia, Italy. And so the social director of the boat decided, well, we need to put these young men and young women together type of thing. Because the social director had no idea what seminarians were about. So none of us would mingle with the girls on the boat. We would say hello, but we were not dancing, and those are things that the social director created for the entertainment on the boat. So what we did, we had about 3-4 guys that played the guitar. A couple of people played banjo. We had some excellent singers. So we started singing, 100 miles, those kinds of things, of songs that were very popular in those days. Then we became, at least the groups that sang, became kind of the entertainment on the boat. The social director had to kind of rearrange everything, but it was fun. And we had fun going to different, first class and cabin class and tourist class to sing for others. And it was a fun time for everyone on the boat, but it was a fun time for us as seminarians to kind of work together and get to know each other and get to know other people as well.
That must have been very entertaining. Like you're let's say you're a first class passenger, and hey, we've got some seminarians here to sing us some songs, and and then a whole bunch of seminarians come in and extremely talented and
they seem to enjoy it. Now, whether what they said afterwards, I don't know.